Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Studio. U.S. envoy Morgan Ortagus has been visiting both Israel and Lebanon over the last several days in an effort to avert the collapse of the ceasefire brought about by Hezbollah's resounding defeat by the IDF last year. Hezbollah is seemingly deterred by Israel's military might. However, it refuses to obey Beirut's demand that the Iranian Shiite proxy disarm and transform into a purely political movement. And should it perceive itself to be cornered, Hezbollah may try to disrupt the process by triggering an escalation following on from one of the many Israeli strikes on people and equipment being used to rehabilitate its infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Does Ortagus, backed by President Trump's prestige and Israel's power, stand a chance of convincing Hezbollah that it is in its own best interests to back down and give up its arsenal? Joining us to dissect those matters include Colonel in Reserve Reuven ben Shalom, who is a cross-cultural strategist among a long list of other positions. It's great to see you, Reuven.
Hello.
Also joining us is Major General in Reserve Gershon Ha-Cohen, who formerly served as the commander of the defense colleges here in Israel, as well as an Army Corps commander, among others. It's great to see you as well, General.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure indeed. And with us, of course, is also Mr. Amir Oren. And Amir, it's not only an Iranian proxy. It's not only a supposed political movement, or as the intelligence community here refers to it, as an extension of the Iranian regime itself, namely the Ayatollahs in Tehran. But it's also a cartel with deep embedded roots in Venezuela, in other countries in Southern America. Its activities across Europe with the export of illicit materials, both drugs as well as weaponry, is well known. The slavery business that Hezbollah is involved with, in trafficking children, no less, from Syrian refugee camps to Africa and other regions in Central Asia, have not gone unnoticed. And ultimately, going back to everything in this context, this terror group is a decapitated threat that is not sitting idly by and remains adamant, based on its religious beliefs, to eliminate the state of Israel.
So, Jonathan, you're making a very good case for not only containing Hezbollah, but to eradicate it. The question is how, and who is going to make such an investment, which might entail a very, very long commitment. And both Israel and the United States have had painful experiences in Lebanon, especially in the 1980s, when Israel went into Lebanon for one reason or according to a certain rationale, and then had to endure 18 years of being there. Obviously, both of our distinguished guests have memories of the fighting in Lebanon, and the United States having been there in order to help the parties in peacekeeping, had to leave having suffered many casualties. Actually, this time of the year, in October, 42 years ago, in October of 1983. So you mentioned Morgan Ortagus. She is not the senior American representative for the Levant. This is Ambassador Thomas Barak, who is stationed in Ankara, but is also the sort of High Commissioner for Syria and Lebanon out of the Istanbul Consulate General. Morgan Ortagus touched all the right bases when she visited Lebanon. She met with President Aoun, with Speaker of the Parliament Berry, with Prime Minister Nawaf Salam. The first one is a Maronite, the second one is a Shiite, and the third one is a Sunni. But she gave no statement following her talks. apparently, according to leaks from the presidential palace, she has tried to move Lebanon towards direct talks with Israel. Up to now, there is no such talks. There used to be a peace treaty in May of 1983, which failed because of Syrian opposition. So maybe this will be one gradual move on a very long road, because Hezbollah is a domestic issue in Lebanon and not only an Israeli-Iranian issue.
Indeed. Well, let's start with a pessimistic view. General Ha-Cohen, I'd like to hear your take on the Lebanese file, since, with all due respect to the optimism that was projected post November 27th by the previous administration and carried on by the current administration, it seems like Hezbollah is not obscure about its intentions not to disarm, and the Beirut government, which knows specifically where all the weapons are and is not oblivious to the facts on the ground, is shying away from engaging and tackling the issue head on.
Actually, the main conflict and the potential of the crisis coming from the gap between 1701 resolution, UN resolution, and 1559 UN resolution. In the second resolution, or after Second Lebanese War in 2006, 1701, it was not demanded that Hezbollah will be disarmed. What was demanded is that Hamas will not be present with equipment in southern Lebanon, southern to Litani.
Hezbollah.
Hezbollah. About the 1559 resolution, this is the main aspiration of the Lebanese government and other Lebanese groups like the Christians, the Maronite Christians, and the Sunni groups. They are demanding that Lebanon will come back to take its sovereignty, to bring back the monopoly of using power and weapon only to the state, and therefore they are demanding from Hezbollah to be disarmed, supported by the French state, Macron president, and by the White House. Actually, they are not going to do that. They are threatening that they are insisting to keep the weapon, even though it will bring Lebanon again to a civil warfare. Considering this threat, the Lebanese army is really hesitating to come to fulfill the expectations that they will be disarmed. Actually, the Israeli attacks, very precise attacks against Hezbollah, are not directed only right now in the last year to what coming back to be a Hezbollah effort in southern Lebanon, but also we are attacking, IDF attacking very severe weapons like precise missiles, and we are aware that Hezbollah could really become again a serious threat to Israel.
One point I will mention, and that is that both UN Security Council Resolution 1701 and UN Security Council Resolution 1559, both are very explicit in stating that there is an expectation to implement the Taif Agreement, which also demands the disarmament of all militias throughout Lebanon, to include, of course, the Iranian proxy Hezbollah. So there is that clause in there that does not necessarily utilize the wording, but it's a reference to a very known and important document that was not implemented. Let's face it, all militias, every household in Lebanon has some type of munition, be it Hezbollah or any other type of organization operating there, or a family for security means, since the Lebanese infrastructure of Lebanon, namely the governmental infrastructure and the various institutions, are so heavily corrupt and so strongly affiliated to different clans that are then again affiliated to different groups, that in order to really disarm Lebanon, it's almost a mission impossible, if I may.
Absolutely, I'll just remark, absolutely true. But the difference is that Hezbollah are equipped with heavy weapons,
Right.
strategic weapons like
Yeah.
missiles, precise missiles for long range. This is not something that you can find in every house.
Absolutely. And those specific munitions are earmarked in order to exert power, not only towards Israel. Let's not forget that Hassan Nasrallah, the slain leader of this terror organization, this Iranian proxy, leveled threats towards Europe. He leveled threats against no other than EU member state Cyprus, one of the 27. So we're talking here about a country that has fomented terror beyond its borders, not only in the direction of Israel, but also westward and eastward and northward. So this is also something that we need to take into account. Colonel Ben Shalom, I'd like to hear your take on it.
Well, I was going to say it's complex. All arenas are complex, all wars are complex, but here there's really a special sensitivity and complexity to Lebanon. First, Lebanon itself is a very unique country, very diverse, very complicated. And even though it's a country in turmoil and chaos and its economy is in shambles, the Lebanese people were able for many, many years to find interesting ways to connect, to hold this country together. Even now, these days, I see something very positive in the way they're managing the situation. And by the way, I was optimistic, and I spoke on this show, Jonathan. I'm becoming a bit more pessimistic now, but still, I'll say that even today, you can see how the Lebanese are trying to move forward with this in a very delicate way. You were talking before about the fact that there were no statements coming out now from the special envoy in Lebanon, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think everything that you say influences the situation. Everything you do influences. And in this situation, in the Lebanese arena, maybe sometimes even the more you say what you want, the less chances are that you're going to fulfill that. And you can see also inside Lebanon, where the Lebanese armed forces are dismantling Hezbollah capabilities in the south. I want to even commend them for these actions. And again, I have to be careful because maybe if an Israeli commends their actions, it will be frowned upon in Lebanon. But I think they are demonstrating an effort to dismantle Hezbollah capabilities in the south. Yet when they do it, they don't go out to the media. They don't tell the Lebanese people, hey, look what we did. And they certainly do not say that they belong to Hezbollah. And even that, you can see why they're trying to do it in a very careful, very sensitive way. So why am I pessimistic right now? Because I think we're in a very narrow window of opportunity. I do not think we defeated Hezbollah, by the way, Jonathan. I think we degraded Hezbollah significantly. We brought about a very unique window of opportunity that could be seized upon, a historic opportunity for Lebanon and for the whole region. But time is very sensitive here. We have elections next year in Lebanon. Hezbollah is regaining power. The economy of Hezbollah, as you yourself said, is much more strong than the country itself. And all their wings around the world are working very hard and accumulating these funds. We see compensation going into Lebanon now to people that were afflicted by the war, and this is their main way of garnering support, and they do have support. Even though I say, Lebanon has an opportunity, a lot of the community supports them. You see the big rallies now commemorating the downfall of Hassan Nasrallah, where many people came out. So where's this going? Hard to tell. I think all the parties have to be very careful, including Israel. Sometimes our natural tendency is to do and say things that are gut instinct. We have to be very diplomatic, very careful. I think the international community has to be much more dominant. Israel usually doesn't like this, but it's not only our fight. It's not only our business. It's regional, Lebanese, international.
Well, I agree with Bart. I don't think Israel needs to be careful. I think Israel needs to be calculated, and it needs to be very deliberate in the sense where we have a scenario in which Hezbollah knows full well that its decision to engage Israel post October 7th, namely starting on October 8th, causing a heinous situation in which roughly between 90 to 100,000 Israelis were displaced to other locations throughout Israel, going through that period and enduring that hardships due to the fact that this terrorist organization, absent any provocation, decided to launch multiple drones and surface-to-surface capability against both military and civilian targets for its own deranged aspirations. And ultimately, it faced the brunt, and it faced the bad end of that deal. So therefore, I do think that Israel should be on the offensive. It should be very critical of the complexities, and it should be, again, careful, namely calculated in the rhetoric, and utilize it quite diligently within the theater. Mr. Oren?
There are two types of deterrence, of course, both of whom our panelists are fully aware of. One sort of deterrence is of force buildup. The other one is for employing this force. Israel, up to now, over the last year, has managed to get a lot of deterrence in Lebanon regarding the employment of whatever arsenal Hezbollah has kept. But Israel has not been able to stop Hezbollah from trying to rehabilitate its infrastructure. So Israel persists at hitting Hezbollah operatives and stores and whatever assets Hezbollah tries to bring forward in the south, but also in the Bekaa, Israel finds and strikes. But it does not stop Hezbollah from trying to do it over and over again. At one point, it may decide, or someone else may decide for it in Tehran, to go on and employ its force, even though it may look nonsensical to Western eyes or to Israeli eyes. We may have some scenario in which the Iranians fear another Israeli or American-Israeli attack, and therefore want to divert attention and resources to the north. So we have to be prepared for such a contingency too.
Always be prepared. Their rationale is different than Western rationale, absolutely. With that being said, we also need to take into account the fact that the Iranians have requested of Hezbollah to join the fight during the 12-day war, and Hezbollah refused, which is quite significant in this context. And that is something that I'd like to ask you, General Ha-Cohen, when we're talking about Hezbollah, it's not the only force, it's not the only capable force, if I may, in Lebanon. And we also need to take into account that while they were the engine of Iran's capacity to exert its sphere of influence in the area of Lebanon, now Turkey is deepening its foothold in Lebanese territory, particularly through the northern town of Tripoli, moving all the way south into into Beirut neighborhoods, also Damascus neighborhoods, but here in this context, Beirut neighborhoods, and it's seeking to level up its relationship now with reports indicating its intentions to deepen also its involvement in support of the LAF, the Lebanese Armed Forces, something that could play both a positive role for Lebanon, but not necessarily a positive role for Israel.
Already we are feeling the presence of the Turkish military forces in the Mediterranean Sea, especially along the northern side of the east side of Mediterranean. And Israeli Navy ships are really meeting. It is not just arbitrarily vessels from the Turkish Navy that inspecting them. Nothing happened already, but they are creating manifestation of presence in the northeast side of Mediterranean. About Hezbollah, of course, it is the main force in Lebanon, not to speak about the Lebanese army, but we must remember the Hamas terroristic groups in mainly southern Lebanon, in Tzor, in the refugee camps like Rashadia, and they have been also required to disarm. It began to happen, but it is not at all sure that it will really be accomplished, because if Hezbollah is not going to be disarmed, they will have a reason why to insist not to go ahead with that process. What we must emphasize is that it is true. Israel didn't intention, IDF didn't intention, according to the military goals, to destroy Hezbollah absolutely, not at all to eradicate Hezbollah. But the main achievement was by taking necessary factors, operational factors from the main operational idea of Hezbollah. It means the main rockets for short range have been destroyed. Not all of them, but more than 30,000 of them. It is a huge achievement. And all the preparation of the commando units of Radwan along the border have been just demolished. It brought Hezbollah to realize that the main operational idea was destroyed. And now they are not only preparing new weapons and new equipment and new training for new combatants, but also they are working hard to create a new operational idea to fight against Israel that related to what they learned in the last engagement.
Divisi pacem parabellum, Colonel Ben Shalom. When you want to avoid war, you need to prepare for one. How is Israel preparing for the event that a scenario may reignite, so to speak, between this Iranian proxy and the State of Israel?
Well, remember that when October 7th happened, it was in a way jumping the gun from that perspective, because we knew both Hamas plans and Hezbollah plans, but we were really expecting more Hezbollah to launch that cross-border raid. And once the war happened, we all sort of feel like, well, at least that was avoided. And now it won't ever be possible because we degraded them so much and took them out of southern Lebanon. But so the basic idea now is there. Still, of course, we have to remember that that was supposed to be the big surprise. So that is no longer the surprise we're preparing for. What will be the next surprise? That's exactly it. It will be a surprise. It will be thinking outside of the box. You can see it was also in the media in Israel this week that there are exercises and scenarios and planning. But of course, you can plan all aspects and still the surprise will be a big surprise. When we listen to Hezbollah now, their declarations are very clear. They're continuing the agenda, waving the flag of resistance. We also have to say in this forum and every forum, especially international forums, how ridiculous they are, because their resistance is against nothing. There's no dispute with Israel. We don't want any land from them. The people of Lebanon deserve better. And I think this is one of the most important things that we all have to do, and that's show how ridiculous, how stupid they are, and how they're really deteriorating their country and leading them to misery. And they're saying it and they're doing it again. We also can't think that because Syria fell, then all the roots have been severed and they can't rearm. They are rearming already now through the air and through the sea. They're working very hard. And as I said, this window of opportunity is very narrow. And I'm pessimistic now. I just want to say this, because even though there are efforts in the south, their declarations are such that in order to solve the internal turmoil and really bring about the implementation of their plan to disarm and really have only one weapon with the Lebanese armed forces, I think that's still far off.
Thank you, Colonel. I will mention that there was a very interesting hearing at the U.S., I think it was the Armed Services Committee or one of the various committees which I saw in full with focus on Hezbollah as a cartel, as an organization, a terror cartel, a mix of two, in which it, of course, benefits largely from the transfer of illicit materials, including drugs, including into the United States of America. And the fact of the matter was that one of those people who were testifying to the committee happened to be Marshall Billingsley, who frequently also joins us here at TV7. And they highlighted with intelligence, concrete intelligence on those issues, that Hezbollah happens to be heavily embedded in Venezuela, obviously, which provides some logic, considering also the relations between Tehran and Venezuela and other aspects thereof. But that may draw the United States to deal with this issue as part of the broader campaign against those narco regimes that are supporting those cartels against Western civilization, which is their interest to do so, also for fiscal reasons. But Mr. Oren, on that and more, closing statement?
You know, Hezbollah was heavily involved in smuggling cigarettes, too, into the United States. They made a lot of profit. But let me just expand on what Reuven said.
You have one sentence.
Regarding expecting the unexpected.
Okay.
The unthinkable happened on October the 7th, and with the Assad regime collapse. If Iran is out of the game, Turkey, a Sunni state, not a Shiite one, may become the new sponsor for Hezbollah if it fits its interests.
That's a very interesting school of thought, and may indeed materialize, since it is turning a blind eye to much of the illicit materials entering into Lebanon these days from Iran. But with that, this is all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank General Ha-Cohen, Colonel Ben Shalom, and Mr. Oren for all of your insights, and I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition from here in Jerusalem, Shalom. For more of TV7's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at TV7israelnews.com.